Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the InnerViews. This is the first time I'll be covering Milan this season, but if there are any other Serie A or Milan games that you do want me to break down, starting next week, every Monday, I'll create a post where it'll allow you to give me your video requests in the comments section below, and I will do my best to get to it. But in today's video, we're going to break down how Verona caused Milan so many issues, even when they went down to 10 men. But before we do that, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. But now, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Verona, more of a 3-4-1-2 with Zaccagni and Stupinski ahead of Verdi. Out in the wing-back roles, Ferroni and Lazovic, and in midfield, Amrabat and Miguel Veloso. Then we move to Milan, more of a 4-3-1-2 with Piątek and Suso ahead of Paqueta, and in midfield they had the shuttlers in Çalhanoğlu and Kessié ahead of Biglia. So now let's get to the first half and see the issues, or break down the issues that Verona caused Milan. So when we break down Milan against Verona, we're going to break down the game in phases. First, we're going to look at how Verona were causing Milan problems prior to Stupinski getting sent off. And what it was that it was the way that Verona did line up. Basically, in a 3-4-1-2, they're looking here to negate any threat that Milan can cause them, as they expect Milan to dictate possession of the game for long spells of the match. And what we did end up seeing here was that the system allowed Verona to go man v man and ensured that Milan couldn't create chances, also knowing the fact that they lack creative players throughout their starting 11. And what we saw here was that they would have the forwards in Stupinski and Zaccagni stepping forward to the center backs. They would have the midfield battle in check because Verdi stuck to Biglia to ensure that he couldn't build attacks from deeper positions. And Amrabat would stick to Çalhanoğlu, with Kessié being marked by Veloso. What ends up happening there is that you also have the wing backs stepping out to Calabria and Rodriguez, but they didn't really have too many issues there because neither player did look to break forward. So what would happen was that they would often end up dropping off into a 5-man backline. At times when the ball was shifted out, they would step forward, but we'll get to that in a second. But more so, that was kind of how they were going about things. And the one real issue that they thought they would have was the fact that because Milan were playing in a 4-3-1-2, they do have the midfield advantage with Paqueta as the spare man at the tip of the diamond. But what they ended up doing there was when Paqueta tried to drop off into those central positions to operate as a spare passing outlet, Kumbulla would drop deeper to ensure that he was marked out of the game. So essentially, because they had that spare center back, Verona ended up utilizing him and ensuring that he would step forward to ensure that Paqueta couldn't overload central areas. In the wider areas, down the left-hand side, what would happen was that because Milan were shaped in that 4-3-1-2, Piątek was more to the left-hand side, and he was often looking to cut in centrally. So when they had Romani stepping out to him and blocking off that space, what happens is that Rodriguez wasn't necessarily pushing forward. So Ferroni could tuck in a bit narrow, and then you could have 2v1 down that side. On the right side, it was a bit different based off the fact that Suso was varying his movement, and it was very simple for Verona to deal with that. Because what would happen was that if Calabria didn't push forward and Suso maintained a central narrow position, they can have Gunter stick with him and then have Lazovic push forward. The only time when they did have some issues was when Suso looked to drift out into that wide position to block off Lazovic, and then they would have the marker in Veloso step out to block off Calabria if he did receive the ball. Because what happens is that the shuttlers or the central midfielders still have the responsibility to shift out to those positions when the ball is played there, because they don't have any wide players occupying that position. But that didn't happen too often, and more so, they really only And Milan down that right side only caused Verona a few issues positionally once they went down to 10 men. We'll get to that in a bit because Verona still did a good job there. So that was kind of how they were going about things down the right and the left-hand side. But Verona did a very good job in ensuring that Milan couldn't create chances. And frankly, they had the better chances in that opening block prior to Stupinski being sent off. Why was that? Because with Milan playing in more of a 4-3-1-2, what happens here is that they lack protection in those wide areas as well. So once Milan lose the ball, Rodriguez and Calabria don't have any players stepping out into those, or any players directly in those wide zones to ensure that they aren't being attacked 1v1 or sometimes 2v1. And what we saw on 2 occasions from Verde and Zaccagni was that they were able to shift the ball out to Ferroni, who was making the run in beyond Çalhanoğlu, because with Milan positioning themselves in that system, Çalhanoğlu is responsible for pushing out to the wing back, and Kessié is responsible for shifting out, especially if the forwards drift out into those positions. And what we saw on 2 occasions, that Ferroni was able to step forward and deliver crosses into the box. The first one was for Verde, who was able to nod an effort over the net, and the second one was pushed away by Donnarumma, but it fell to Zaccagni, who overhead kicked his effort into the path of the keeper. So that was how they were able to ensure that Milan were unable to really create anything in that opening block, and they were able to find routes to goal. However, once Stupinski did get sent off, Verona were forced to reshuffle, moving into more of a 5-3-1. Zaccagni moved out to the left shuttler role, Veloso was at the base, and Verde stayed up top. Now their ability to ensure that Milan couldn't dictate the center of the pitch was altered. We saw Verde sit on Biglia, and that meant that now Romagnoli and Musacchio were able to push forward and step into the attack. However, Verona ensured that those players weren't able to get onto the ball and receive passes from the center backs, because now Veloso was tasked with tracking Paqueta. Amrabat stuck with his task of sitting on Çalhanoğlu, and down the left-hand side, what we ended up seeing was that Zaccagni would step out to Calabria. Why? Because what was happening now was Suso was occupying the touchline to provide more width, and he was occupying Lazovic, and then you'd have Calabria. When he received the ball, Zaccagni would have to step out to him, and now there was space for Kessié to push forward to ensure that perhaps Milan could get more players into the box, offer more of a physical presence, and free up space for Piątek. But they dealt with that well, because Gunter ensured that he occupied Kessié and ensured that he wasn't unable to get on the ball. And with Calabria not pushing forward, what happens was that if the ball wasn't out to him and it got shifted to Suso, Zaccagni could shift over to ensure that it was 1v2 there. So essentially, for the most part, they did have 3v2 in those areas, and even when Suso and Kessié switched positions as they often did, they weren't able to find any breakthrough. And just like I said down the left-hand side, with Ferroni being able to tuck in because Rodriguez wasn't pushing forward, Piątek was often outnumbered in those zones, and he could only rely on Suso, who was often cutting in onto his left foot from the right-hand side to deliver cross into the box. Often they were overhit and they didn't meet Piątek in that area, and he was isolated. And frankly, again, even with 10 men in that first half, in the second phase of it, it was Verona creating the better chances, and it was one in particular. And we saw somewhat of a glimpse of this earlier on prior to that chance, where Romani tried to play a long ball over the Milan backline for Verde, but he was offside. However, they were able to set him free, and it was when Piątek was stepping to Romani to press him, and he located Verde making the run between Musacchio and Romagnoli to get the ball at the edge of the box, and he was able to bring it down and then volley an effort on goal that just went inches wide. When you break down that first half as a whole and you assess it, Verona's shape was good with 11 men, stifling Milan, ensuring that they were unable to create chances, and knowing that if they were able to mark their players in midfield, they lacked the personnel to find that penetrative pass and provide Piątek with service. And they were going down the right-hand side, and when they went down to 10 men, they ensured that, yes, they can allow Milan center backs to push forward. However, they were able to find a route to go through Verde, who was often looking to break in behind. But when you look at it, this is my biggest problem with Milan, and it's the fact that they don't have the creative personnel to create chances when teams sit in a deeper block. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. But now, let's get to the second half, see what changes Milan made and how they were able to claim all 3 points. So when we break down the second half, Milan did make a change, bringing on Rebic for Paqueta, and now they did look more like a 4-3-2-1, 4-3-3. Rebic narrow, sticking near Romani. We saw Rodriguez try to push forward now. Like I said again, you had the center backs in Musacchio and Romagnoli being able to step forward, and Suso was occupying more space out in the wider areas. And what we ended up seeing was that Rebic offered them something different. Although when you had Rodriguez a bit deeper and narrow, Ferroni could still tuck into that space to ensure that he could pick up the marker and that they could have two players around Piątek, but still Rebic was key here. We look at some of Milan's best chances that they did create, the first one being pushed out to Suso, and Lazovic stepped late to him, and he was able to clip the ball into Rebic, making the run across Ferroni. And although he did get onto it, he wasn't able to guide an effort on goal before he slipped and was pushed off the ball. But again, we weren't seeing those runs from Paqueta, and Piątek was marked out of the game. So when you have another player making that run, it frees up space for Piątek in the center of the box to possibly get even a half-inch on goal to make something happen, and that's pivotal. Shortly after that, we kind of see something different from Milan that we didn't see in the first half. Now, because the center backs are able to push forward, you're able to shift the ball out to Rodriguez in that zone. That forces Ferroni to step forward because, like I said, you have Amrabat dealing with Çalhanoğlu, so he can't push into that space, and you have Rebic occupying his marker in Romani there. So now with the ball being pushed out to Rodriguez, you have to have Ferroni step to him. So what we see here is Rodriguez pokes the ball beyond Ferroni into Rebic, making the run into that space, and he's able to drag the ball to the byline, and his cross is cleared by both Kumbula and Lazovic into the path of Calabria, and he's able to chest the ball down and fire a low effort off the post. Milan's best chance of the game, Rebic making runs in behind. You weren't getting that from Piątek or Paqueta when they were in the side in the first half. That's how he's offering something different. Being able to make those runs into that space, offer more of a direct threat, and occupy more of Verona's center backs, which was key. That move also did lead to Amrabat being booked later on in the second half. Again, Romagnoli switching it out to the ball out to Rodriguez, pokes it beyond Ferroni, and we see Rebic being able to, with the shift of his body, skip past Romani, and Amrabat tracks it well, but ends up sliding into the path of his marker in Rebic, and that is how he was booked. We did witness Verona create one legitimate goal-scoring opportunity because prior to that, they were still heavily relying on Verde making runs in behind the center backs and the full backs when they did win possession, and that did help them push up higher up the pitch and ensure that Milan couldn't push all their men forward. However, the fact here was that when they did get that opportunity, it stemmed from a corner kick that Romagnoli didn't clear. Lazovic did push Suso off the ball, and it allowed Veloso to hold the ball and carry it down the left touchline, where he was blocked off by Suso and Calabria, but still managed to split them and play the ball back to Lazovic. And with Kumbula still in the box, Lazovic's cross goes over Romagnoli and Rodriguez, who were occupied by Kumbula, the center back, and you see Verdi peel off it and side foot his effort off the post that nearly beat Donnarumma. That was their best chance, and when you break down that entire second half, shortly after that, it was coincidentally Verde who was hurt on the pitch, on the ground, and you had Zaccagni trying to stop the play, but he switched off, and that allowed Milan to create the opportunity that led to the penalty. How did that stem? Well, you have Romagnoli stepping forward now with Verde down, and he slides the ball to Biglia, who then slides it back to him ahead of Ferroni. And then when Romagnoli slides the ball back to Biglia again, we see Veloso step. When Veloso steps, you now have Biglia with space for one of the few times in that game where he's able to split Zaccagni and split Veloso stepping to find Piątek ahead of Romani. And Piątek lays it off into the path of Çalhanoğlu, who fires a shot off a defender's hand, and the referee and VAR award Milan the penalty. But when you break that down and you look at it, shortly after that, they did bring on Pessina for Verdi, but he didn't offer the same threat in behind that allowed Verona to push forward. And we also saw Tutino and De Carmen come on as Verona moved into more of a 4-4-1, but they only created one golden opportunity towards the end of the game following Calabria being sent off, which did see Veloso fire a free effort on goal following a blocked free kick inches wide of the post. When you break down the game as a whole, this is down to Milan struggling to create chances and not having the personnel available to either break through the center of the pitch or get enough options out in the wider areas to harm sides. And that's partially down to the fact that the fullbacks weren't getting forward, the midfield was blocked out of the game, and they solely and heavily rely on Suso cutting in from that right channel to deliver crosses into the box or fire shots on goal. When Rebic came on, he offered another direct threat. He offered more issues for the Verona backline, and although they didn't score a goal from open play, it did help shift the game, and they were fortunate to get that penalty when Verde was out because it allowed Biglia to step forward to offer that spare man presence that they did lack throughout the game because Verona were so well organized. But let me know what you guys think. Can this Milan side finish in the top 4? And following this performance, do you think Verona will finish in the top half this season? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And make sure to check out my next video where I'll break down Aston Villa against Everton before I get into the Champions League action. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.